My son locked me away, drugged me, and sold the house I built with my own 2 hands. He told everyone I was confused. He thought I was just an old man waiting to die. He was about to find out that this old carpenter still knew how to tear things down. If you're listening to this, subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone out there. I spent 40 years building things. My hands are rough, scarred by sawdust and time. I built homes for families, places meant to last. My own house was on Oak Street. I built it 50 years ago. Solid oak floors, a wide porch, a yard where Martha, my wife, grew her roses. She was the heart of that place, the soul. When Martha passed 5 years ago, the silence was deafening. The house felt too big, the air too still. But it was still home. Every scratch on the floor was a memory. My son Michael pushing his toy trucks. Every smudge on the wall was a ghost of the life we lived. It was my anchor. I thought Michael understood that. He grew up there. But people change, and money changes them faster. Michael changed when he married Sarah. They lived a life they couldn't afford. A massive house in the suburbs that felt more like a museum than a home. Fancy German cars, vacations to Europe, a lifestyle built on debt. Michael's business always seemed to be on the edge of collapse. He'd show up at my door, his eyes darting around, his hands fidgeting. "Dad, I just need a little help," he'd say. "A bridge loan, just until the next contract comes in." I helped when I could. He was my son, my only child. You want the best for your kids, but the loans got bigger, and the repayments stopped coming altogether. I was enabling him, but I didn't see it then. Sarah was the real problem. She never saw a home, she saw an asset. We were sitting on the porch one hot afternoon. I was sanding a small rocking horse I was making for a neighbor's kid. Sarah sipped her expensive wine, her expression sour. "George," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "this house is so much work for you, all this upkeep. It's exhausting just watching you." "I managed just fine, Sarah," I replied, keeping my eyes on the wood. The grain was smooth under my fingers. "But think about the value," she pressed. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp, calculating. "It's just sitting here. All that money, tied up in old wood and plaster. You should be enjoying your retirement, not cleaning gutters." I stopped sanding. I looked at her. "This is my home, Sarah, not an investment portfolio." She gave a tight smile, a smile that never reached her eyes. "Of course, George. We just worry about you. Worry." I didn't know then that their worry was a weapon. I ignored her. I was 72, but I was strong. I took care of myself. I thought I was safe in my own home. I thought I was safe with my own son. Until the day I fell. It was October. The air was crisp. The leaves were turning gold and red. I was cleaning the gutters, a chore I'd done 1,000 times. I smelled rain coming. I wanted to finish before it hit. I reached just a little too far, a small mistake. My foot slipped on a patch of wet leaves clinging to the ladder rung. The world spun. Sky, ground, sky, ground. I landed hard in Martha's rose bushes. Thorns tore at my jacket. The breath knocked out of me. I wasn't hurt badly. A bruised hip, a few scratches. My pride took the biggest hit. I got up, dusted myself off, and finished the job. I didn't think anything of it, but my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, saw it, and she called Michael. That phone call was the beginning of the end. Michael arrived that evening. He burst through my front door like a hurricane. Sarah hovered behind him, her arms crossed, her face a mask of grim satisfaction. It felt like an ambush. Michael's face was red. He wasn't just worried. He looked furious. "Dad, what were you thinking?" he shouted, right there in my living room, the room where Martha and I used to dance. "It was just a stumble, Michael. I'm fine," I insisted, rubbing my sore hip. The ache was setting in now. "Fine? Mrs. Gable said you were lying on the ground for 5 minutes. She thought you were dead." I was catching my breath, I argued. My voice was tired. "You are not fine," Sarah interrupted. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. "You're unsteady on your feet. And you forget things, George." "I do not forget things," I said, feeling defensive. "You forgot my birthday last week," Michael said, his voice accusing. He was right. I had forgotten. It stung. Maybe I was slipping a little. Maybe they were right to worry. The doubt crept in. That was their first victory. They planted the seed of doubt in my own mind. "George," Sarah said, softening her tone. "A tactical retreat. What if you had hit your head? You could have been lying there for days. We can't let that happen." "We have a solution," Michael added, putting a hand on my shoulder. His touch felt cold. A wonderful place. Just for a little while. They called it a rehabilitation retreat. Michael talked fast. He was selling it hard. Physical therapy, gourmet meals, round-the-clock care. It sounded like a fancy hotel, not a hospital. It's top of the line, Dad, Michael said, his voice earnest. The best physical therapist in the state. You'll be back on your feet in no time. Stronger than ever. I was tired. My hip throbbed. The house felt too empty that night. Maybe a week or two of rest wouldn't be so bad. I looked at my son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the man I trusted with my life. Okay, I sighed. The fight went out of me. Just a couple of weeks. Then I'm coming home. Michael smiled. That tight, quick smile. The same one Sarah used. Of course, Dad. Just until you're stronger. I should have seen the lie in his eyes. But I didn't want to see it. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my son still loved me. The next day they packed a small bag for me. Just a few clothes. My shaving kit. A book. You won't need much, Dad, Michael said cheerfully. They provide everything. We drove in Michael's big new BMW. It smelled like expensive leather. And deceit. The silence in the car was heavy. Ominous. We pulled up to a place called Willow Creek Assisted Living. It was a large, imposing brick building. The lawns were perfectly green. Too green. But it didn't look like a retreat. It looked like a place where people went to wait for the end. My stomach tightened. A cold dread crept up my spine. The knot of fear pulling tight. Michael, I said, my voice trembling slightly. This looks like a nursing home. It's their advanced care wing, Dad, he said smoothly, pulling into a parking spot near the entrance. It's just the name on the sign. The rehab center is inside. State of the art. You'll love it. He was lying. I knew it in my gut, but I still walked inside. I still followed him, like a lamb to the slaughter. The moment the automatic doors slid open, the truth hit me like a physical blow. The air was heavy, stale. It smelled of disinfectant and boiled vegetable, a smell that sucked the hope out of the room. The hallways were long and quiet, too quiet. There was no laughter, no life. People sat slumped in wheelchairs. Their eyes were vacant, empty. A television blared a game show in the corner, the host shouting excitedly. But no one was watching. This wasn't a retreat. This was a prison. I don't want to be here, I said, stopping dead in the lobby. My voice was louder than I intended. A few heads turned slowly towards me. Michael grabbed my elbow. His grip was tight, painfully tight. His fingers dug into my skin. Don't make a scene, Dad, he hissed, his voice low and threatening, a tone I had never heard him use before. This is for your own good. We've already arranged everything. He dragged me to the admissions desk. A nurse sat there, her face tired and etched with indifference. Her name tag read, Brenda. She wore bright pink scrubs, but her attitude was gray. Brenda handed Michael a clipboard, a thick stack of papers. Michael started signing, fast. Too fast. His pen scratched across the paper, a frantic rhythm. What are you signing, Michael? I asked. Suspicion crawled over me like a cold insect. I need to read that. Let me see it. I reached for the clipboard. He pulled it away. Just standard admissions forms, Dad, he said, not looking up. Insurance information. Liability waivers. Don't worry about it. It's complicated legal stuff. He shielded the papers with his arm, blocking my view. He didn't want me to see what he was signing. He didn't want me to know what he was taking away. But I already knew. He was signing away my freedom. Then Nurse Brenda looked at me. Her eyes were cold, dead. Miss Miller, she said, her voice flat. We need to take your wallet and your cell phone now. It's policy, for safekeeping. My phone? Why? Panic started to rise in my chest. My connection to the outside world. My lifeline. So you can focus on relaxing, George, Sarah said, stepping forward. Her voice was smooth as silk, but sharp as a razor. No distractions. We want you to get better. No stress. Michael will call the main desk every day to check on you, Brenda added robotically. They took everything. My wallet, my keys, my phone, my identification, my independence, my dignity, stripped away in less than 5 minutes. Before I could protest. Before I could demand to read the papers. Michael signed. He gave me a brief, stiff hug. His body was rigid. It felt like hugging a stranger. "Settle in, Dad," he said, avoiding my eyes. "I'll see you soon." And then they were gone. Michael and Sarah walked out the door. They didn't look back. Not once. The automatic doors slid shut behind them with a soft click. It sounded like a prison gate locking. I was trapped, and I finally understood. This wasn't about my health. It was about my house. The first few weeks were a nightmare. I couldn't wake up from. A slow-motion horror movie where I was the star. They put me in a small beige room. Room 204. The walls were bare, the bed was narrow and hard. The window overlooked the parking lot. I watched the cars come and go, feeling like a ghost haunting my own life. The staff treated me like I was deaf and stupid. They spoke loudly and slowly, using baby talk. "How are we feeling today, Reggie?" An aide, named Maria, asked me one morning, patting my head. She was young, maybe Emily's age, but she treated me like an infant. I gritted my teeth. "My name is George, and I'm fine." She just smiled patronizingly. "Okay, Georgie, time for arts and crafts." They made me weave baskets. Me, a man who built houses. The humiliation was agonizing. I felt my identity slipping away, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the medication. Every morning at 8 a.m., every evening at 8 p.m., Nurse Brenda would come into my room. She held a little paper cup. 2 white pills, and 1 blue one. The colors of my imprisonment. "Time for your medicine, George," she'd say, her voice flat and emotionless. The first day I refused. I stood my ground. "I don't take medicine," I argued. "I'm perfectly healthy." "What is this?" "I want to talk to the doctor." Brenda sighed, tapping her pen on her chart. "The doctor has reviewed your file, George. This is to help you settle in. Keeps you calm. Helps with the confusion." "I'm not confused," I insisted, my voice rising. "I know exactly where I am, and I know I don't belong here." Brenda stepped closer. Her eyes narrowed. The thin veneer of professionalism vanished. "George," she said, her voice low and menacing, "your son informed us about your memory issues, your recent aggressive behavior. The early signs of dementia." Dementia, the word hit me like a punch to the gut. Michael told them I had dementia. That was the foundation of his plan. "That's a lie," I shouted. "If you refuse your medication," she said slowly, letting the words hang in the air, "we have to note you down as uncooperative and agitated. The doctor might order restraints. For your own safety," she paused.
"Or a transfer to the secure memory wing."
The secure memory wing. I had heard the screams coming from that hallway at night, the muffled cries, the banging on the doors. The threat was real, terrifyingly real. I looked at her cold eyes. I knew she meant it. The helplessness was crushing. I was powerless. Trapped. I took the pills. Within an hour, a thick fog settled over my mind. It felt like my brain was wrapped in cotton. Heavy. Thick. My thoughts became slow and muddy. I couldn't focus. I couldn't remember simple words. The days melted into each other, a blur of beige walls and loud televisions. I would sit in the common room, staring at the screen, unable to follow the simplest plots. The colors were too bright, the sounds too loud. I felt heavy, slow, stupid. I, George Miller, who had built complex structures from blueprints, who could calculate load-bearing walls in my head, couldn't remember what I had for breakfast. I started to forget the smell of Martha's roses. I started to forget the sound of my own voice. My hands, once so steady, began to tremble. This wasn't care. This was chemical imprisonment. And my son was the warden. Michael visited on Sundays, always at 2 p.m. He would sit by my bed, wearing his expensive suits. He adjusted his watch nervously, his eyes darting towards the door.
He never stayed long. He talked about the weather, the news, his business deals, anything but the truth. "You look rested, Dad," he'd say, smiling that tight, fake smile. Rested. I felt like a ghost, trapped inside a body that was failing me, a mind that was betraying me. "I want to go home, Michael," I mumbled, struggling to push the words through the fog.
My tongue felt thick and heavy. I'm strong now. Kip is fine. Soon, Dad, he said soothingly, patronizingly. The doctor says you're still adjusting. Your cognitive tests are still a bit fuzzy. Fuzzy, because they were drugging me. We can't risk you being alone, he continued. It's not safe. We're doing this because we love you. Love. The word felt like poison on his lips. He always had an excuse, a reason to keep me locked away. Weeks turned into a month, then two. I felt my life slipping away, like sand through a sieve. I was disappearing, fading into the beige walls. I started to believe them. Maybe I was confused. Maybe I was sick. Despair was a cold companion in that small room. The fog was comforting sometimes. It muffled the pain, the fear. But then something happened. A small mistake that changed everything. A crack in the foundation of their lies. One afternoon, I was sitting near the nurse's station. They made me use a wheelchair. Policy, they said. It was easier for them to move me around, to control me. I was half asleep, lulled by the drugs. The fog was thick that day. I overheard two aides talking during their break. Brenda and a younger aide named Tom. They thought I couldn't hear them. They thought I couldn't understand. Did you see the new BMW in the parking lot? Tom asked, sipping his coffee. Yeah, Brenda replied, scrolling through her phone. Belongs to the son of the guy in 24. Miller. Must be nice. Must be, Tom said. He just cleared out the old man's house yesterday. Cleared it out? My stomach lurched. My heart started to pound. Cleared it out? Brenda asked, sounding bored. Yeah, moving truck and everything. Took it all. Heard the house sold in one day. Cash offer. That neighborhood is gold. Sold. The word hit me like a jolt of electricity, a lightning strike that cut through the fog. My house. Martha's house. The home I built.
Sold.
A cold shock cleared my mind for a moment. The haze lifted, replaced by a searing clarity. They couldn't sell my house. I owned it. The deed was in my name. I never signed anything, unless I remembered the clipboard. The lobby, Michael signing papers so quickly, shielding them from my view. The scratching of the pen, just standard admissions forms, Dad. He hadn't just signed admission forms, he must have gotten power of attorney. How? I never gave him control. I would never do that. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. It knocked the breath out of me. I gripped the arms of the wheelchair so tightly my knuckles turned white. He forged it. He must have forged my signature. Maybe he bribed a doctor to say I was incompetent. The dementia story, it wasn't a mistake. It was a strategy, a cold, calculated plan, while I was locked away. Drugged and helpless. My son was stealing my life. He wasn't protecting me. He was robbing me, erasing me. Panic clawed at my throat. I couldn't breathe. The walls of Willow Creek seemed to close in on me. I had to think clearly. I had to fight back.
I couldn't do that as long as they were drugging me. I had to get the fog out of my head. Now, that night, when Nurse Brenda came with a little paper cup, I looked at the pills. 2 white, 1 blue, the keepers of the fog, the shackles on my mind.
Here you go, George, she said, handing me the cup and a glass of water. Her routine never varied. I put the pills in my mouth. I took a sip of water, but I didn't swallow. I tucked the pills under my tongue, the bitter taste dissolving, chalky and metallic. Brenda watched me closely. She always did, her eyes suspicious. Swallow, George. All the way down. Open your mouth. I opened my mouth slightly, faked a swallow, grimacing slightly. I had to make it convincing. The fear of being caught was paralyzing. If they found out, they would force the drugs down my throat or use needles. But the fear of losing everything was stronger. Brenda nodded, satisfied. She marked her chart and left. As soon as the door closed, I spat the wet, dissolving pills into a napkin. I flushed them down the toilet. My heart hammered in my chest. My hands shook. I had taken the first step. I was taking my mind back, but I knew the hard part was just beginning. The next 3 days were torture, pure hell. The withdrawal was brutal. My body screamed for the drugs. My hands shook uncontrollably. I couldn't hold a cup of water without spilling it. My head pounded like a jackhammer against concrete. The pain was blinding. I couldn't sleep. The nights stretched into eternity, filled with shadows and fear. I vomited in the bathroom, quietly, desperately trying to hide the sounds so no one would check on me. I was weak, dizzy, freezing cold, even under the blankets. If the staff found out, it was over. I would be sent to the memory wing. I would be lost forever. During the day, I had to pretend. I had to act like I was still foggy, still compliant, still broken. I shuffled when I walked. I kept my voice low and slurred. I stared at the television with vacant eyes. I drooled a little. It was the hardest performance of my life. I was an actor playing the role of a dying man, while inside I was fighting for my life. The urge to confess my pain, to beg for relief, was overwhelming. But I held on. I thought of Martha. I thought of my house. I thought of the betrayal. The anger fueled me. It kept me going when my body wanted to quit. Slowly, world came back into focus. The colors seemed brighter, the sounds sharper, my thoughts. Once muddy water became a clear stream again. Clear and cold. And with clarity came a cold, hard rage. A fury I had never known. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. And I was going to make my son pay for what he did. I started watching everything. I became a spy in my own prison. I observed the routines. The shift changes at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The way the orderlies took their smoke breaks by the side door. The code for the staff elevator. When 9:53. I was a prisoner planning his escape. But first I needed proof. I needed to know the extent of the damage. I needed to hear him admit it. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. When Michael visited that Sunday, I was ready. I sat in the chair by the window. I looked frail and confused. My shoulders slumped, my hands trembling slightly. They still were, but I exaggerated it. But my mind was a coiled spring, sharp and dangerous. Sarah was with him this time. She flitted around the room, criticizing the decor. Her expensive perfume filled the small space, making me nauseous. "It's so dreary in here," she sniffed, looking at the beige walls with disgust. "We really need to talk to the management about updating the colors. It's depressing." Michael pulled up a chair. He looked relaxed, confident. He was wearing a new suit. A new watch, bought with my money. He thought he had won. "How are you feeling, Dad?" he asked, his voice full of false cheer. "Tired, Michael," I said softly, keeping my voice weak, raspy. But I had the strangest dream. "Oh, yeah? What about?" he asked, checking his phone under the table. "I dreamed you sold my house." The air in the room froze. Michael's hand froze on his phone. Sarah stopped looking at the walls. They exchanged a quick glance, a flicker of panic in their eyes. Michael cleared his throat. He put his phone away. "Dad," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully, "that wasn't a dream. We had to. It was for the best." The admission was so casual, so matter-of-fact. It chilled me to the bone. The best? My voice was gaining strength. I didn't try to hide it anymore. The mask was slipping.
"Selling the home I built?"
"The home your mother loved?" "George," Sarah said, stepping forward, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "your care here is very expensive. Willowalk is the best facility in the state. We wanted you to be comfortable, and the house was just sitting there." Michael added quickly, "Empty. It made sense to use the assets to ensure your long-term care." Assets. Is that what I was to them now? An asset to be liquidated. "You had no right," I said, my voice shaking with rage. I sat up straight. I looked him in the eye. "Actually, I did," Michael said, his tone hardening, the mask of the loving sun slipping away, revealing the greed underneath. "I have power of attorney. I have the legal authority to manage your finances. For your benefit." He didn't even deny it. The agonizing realization that my son had legally betrayed me wasn't just a fear, it was a fact. He looked at me not with guilt, but with justification. He believed he was entitled to my life. "You forged it," I stated. My voice cold and steady. The performance was over. I never signed a power of attorney. Michael flinched, but he recovered quickly. He tried to gaslight me, to make me doubt my own mind. Dad, you don't remember, he said soothingly. You've been confused since the fall. We talked about this. You signed the papers right here in this facility. You agreed it was the best course of action. I agreed to a rehab retreat. I spat. Not this. Not selling my home. Not locking me away. We have a doctor who testified that you weren't competent to handle your affairs, Sarah said smugly. She crossed her arms. A very respected doctor. Dr. Evans. It was all legal, done properly. Dr. Evans, a name. The first piece of the puzzle. They hadn't just tricked me. They had built a legal cage around me. They had planned this meticulously. And my savings? I asked, dreading the answer. The money Martha and I saved for 50 years? The retirement fund? The bonds? Michael looked down at his hands. He couldn't meet my eyes. Sarah examined her nails. Indifferent. There were debts, Dad, Michael mumbled. The business was failing. Bad investments. We were going to lose everything. Our house, the cars, Emily's college fund. He looked up, desperate for understanding. And the cost of this place, it all just added up. He trailed off. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. It was gone, all of it. The house, the savings, my freedom, my entire life's work, wiped out by my own flesh and blood, used to save their lifestyle. The helplessness threatened to crush me. I had nothing left. I was an old man in a nursing home, waiting to die. Get out, I whispered. The sound was raw, broken. Dad, please try to understand, Michael pleaded, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. I did this for the family. For us. Get out, I roared, standing up. The sudden burst of energy surprised them. The rage fueled me. They stumbled back, shocked by the fire in my eyes. They had expected a broken old man. They found a fighter. They left quickly, the door clicking shut behind them. I was alone again, but this time I wasn't just sad. I was furious, and I was going to fight. I tried to fight from the inside first. The next morning, I demanded to see the director. Mrs. Davis was a stern woman, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes cold and calculating. She peered at me over her glasses from behind a large oak desk. Mr. Miller, she said, her voice clipped. I understand you had a disagreement with your son, but you need to calm down. Agitation is not good for your condition. My son forged the documents, I told her, trying to sound calm and rational, trying to make her see the truth. I am perfectly competent. I demand to be released. I demand you contact the authorities. Mrs. Davis sighed. She looked at the file on her desk. My file, full of lies, written by Dr. Evans and Michael. Mr. Miller, she said, her voice laced with pity. We have legal documentation stating your son is your guardian. We have medical records indicating significant cognitive decline, signed by Dr. Evans. Dr. Evans is a fraud. He never examined me. I understand this is difficult, Mrs. Davis continued, ignoring me, but we cannot release you without your son's authorization. He is responsible for your care. We are legally bound. Then call the police. This is fraud. This is kidnapping. You are holding me against my will. We will not call the police, she said coldly. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. We are a care facility, not a courthouse. She stood up. The meeting was over. If you continue to cause disturbances, Mr. Miller, she warned, her voice sharp, we will be forced to increase your medication, for your own safety. She paused. Or transfer you to the secure memory wing. I don't think you would enjoy that, George. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. I was trapped in a system designed to protect the abusers. Michael had played the game perfectly. He had isolated me, discredited me, and stolen everything. He thought he had gotten away with it. He thought I was finished. Despair washed over me, a cold, dark wave. I sat in my room, the beige walls closing in. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just an old man who had outlived his usefulness. I looked at my hands, the hands that had built so much. Now they were empty, useless. But then I remembered Martha, her strength, her fierce belief in justice. She would never want me to give up. She would tell me to tear it all down if I had to. And I remembered someone else. Someone Michael and Sarah had underestimated. Someone they had dismissed. Her name was Emily, my granddaughter. Emily was 20 years old, studying journalism in college. She was bright, fiery, and she had Martha's kind heart and my stubborn streak. But Michael and Sarah had always kept her distant from me. They said I confused her, that my old-fashioned ways were a bad influence. Now I understood why. They didn't want her close enough to see the truth. They didn't want her to see the darkness behind their expensive facade. I hadn't seen Emily in almost 6 months, but she was my only hope. My last chance. I had to reach her, but how? I had no phone, no money, no connection to the outside world. I was a ghost. I looked around the common room, the residents shuffling by, lost in their own worlds, the staff watching us like hawks. Then I saw it, a payphone in the corner, covered in dust, unused, a relic from another era. I checked the coin return. Empty. I needed change. I needed a lifeline. I started asking the other residents. Most ignored me, or didn't understand. They were too far gone. But then I met Frank, a retired teacher. He sat by the window, reading a newspaper. His eyes were sharp, clear. He saw the desperation in mine. Need to make a call, Sonny? He asked, his voice frail, but his mind intact. Yes, sir, I whispered, looking around nervously. Nurse Brenda was at the station. My granddaughter, it's life or death. Frank dug into the pocket of his robe. It took him a long time. His hands were twisted with arthritis. He pulled out a handful of coins, quarters, dimes, nickels. Make it count, he said, pressing the cold metal into my hand. And watch out for Brenda. She sees everything. I waited until the afternoon shift change, 3 p.m., when the staff was busy and distracted. The handover was always chaotic, a small window of opportunity. I walked to the payphone, my heart pounding in my chest. Each step felt like a mile. I tried to look casual, just an old man wandering the halls. I picked up the receiver. The plastic felt cold against my ear. I dialed Emily's number, the number I had memorized years ago, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the coins. What if she didn't answer? What if Michael had turned her against me? What if she didn't believe me? The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. My breath caught in my throat. Please, Emily, pick up. Hello? Her voice was clear and bright, a beacon in the darkness. Emily. My voice cracked with emotion. Tears stung my eyes. It's Grandpa. There was a pause, a long silence on the other end of the line. Grandpa, where are you? Her voice was filled with confusion. Dad said you were at a special rehab place upstate. He said you couldn't take calls, that the doctors wanted you to rest. She paused. He said you were doing great. The lies. They had spread their poison everywhere. Emily, listen to me. I had to talk fast. I kept my eyes on the nurse's station. I don't have long. Your father, he lied. The words tumbled out. A torrent of pain and betrayal. He put me in a nursing home, Willow Creek. It's horrible. He sold the house, Emily, Oak Street. He took all my savings. What? Her voice was filled with disbelief. Shock. That's impossible. Dad wouldn't do that. He loves you. He did, sweetheart, I pleaded. Desperate. He forged documents. Power of attorney. They're drugging me here to keep me quiet, to keep me confused. You have to believe me. I could hear the confusion and fear in her voice. Emily's internal struggle, believing her grandfather over her father. It was agonizing. She loved her dad. This was shattering her world. I hated doing this to her, but I had no choice. Grandpa, that sounds crazy, she whispered. Are you sure? Mom said you were getting confused, that the fall affected your memory. They said you had dementia. I am sure, Emily, I insisted. I stopped taking the medication. It was hard. But my mind is clear, clearer than it's been in months. Please, sweetheart, you're the only one who can help me. They are going to keep me here until I die. There was a long silence. I held my breath, praying, begging her to believe me, to see the truth. "Okay, Grandpa," she whispered finally, her voice trembling, but strong. "Okay, I believe you. I'm coming. I'm coming right now." The relief was so overwhelming I almost collapsed. I leaned against the wall, tears streaming down my face. I hung up the phone. Hope, a feeling I thought I had lost forever, flickered in my chest. Emily arrived the next day. When she walked into the lobby of Willow Creek, she looked like a warrior. Her eyes, so like Martha's, were blazing with determination. She was wearing jeans and a college sweatshirt, but she looked stronger than anyone I knew. She saw me sitting in the wheelchair, frail and small, her face crumpled. "Grandpa," she rushed over and hugged me tight. I held on to her, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling safe for the first time in months. The touch of someone who truly loved me. "You came," I whispered, clinging to her. "Of course I came," she said, pulling back and looking at me. Her eyes scanned my face, taking in the weight I had lost. The exhaustion etched into my features. "Oh, Grandpa, what did they do to you?" "It doesn't matter now," I said. "You're here. Now tell me everything," she said, her voice fierce. We sat in a corner of the common room, away from the prying eyes of the staff. I told her the whole story. The betrayal, the drugs, the despair, the forgery, the realization. The more I talked, the angrier she got. Her face flushed, her hands clenched into fists. She was my granddaughter. She was a fighter, the power of attorney, she said, taking notes in a small notebook. The journalist in her taking over. Methodical, focused. "That's the key. We need to prove he forged it." "How?" I asked, feeling the familiar hopelessness creeping back. "He has a doctor, Dr. Evans, who lied for him, who said I was incompetent." "I'll figure it out," Emily said, her voice determined. "I'm going to get you out of here, Grandpa."
Oh, I promise.
Emily started investigating. She was relentless. The risk she was taking investigating her own parents was enormous. It could tear her life apart. But she didn't hesitate. She went to the courthouse. She pulled the records for the house sale and the power of attorney document. She came back the next day, her face grim. "I have the documents, Grandpa," she said, sitting down beside me. She showed me the copies. "The signature, it doesn't look like yours." I looked at the signature. It was my name, George Miller. But it was shaky, hesitant, a poor imitation of my strong, steady hand. "The signature of a confused old man. That's not mine," I said, my voice filled with disgust. "I know," Emily said, "but proving it is hard." The document was notarized. "A notary, who?" "Someone named Samuel Jenkins," Emily said, checking her notes. "I looked him up. He has a history of complaints filed against him. Shady character. Grandpa, Samuel Jenkins. Another name, another piece of the puzzle." She paused, her eyes filling with tears. I confronted Mom. My heart stopped. "Sarah." "She tried to lie," Emily said, her voice shaking with emotion. "She told me I was being disrespectful, that I was stressing Dad out. She said you were sick and needed help, that I was making things worse by believing your delusion, but I pushed her," Emily continued, wiping her tears angrily. "I told her I knew about the money, the house sale, the power of attorney, the notary. I told her I knew about the debts." And she broke down. Sarah had confessed. Not out of guilt, but out of fear. She was a coward, just like I always knew. She blamed Dad for everything, Emily said. She said he forced her, that the debts were his fault, that they were desperate. "And the doctor?" I asked. "Dr. Evans?" "She told me," Emily said, her voice hardening with anger. "Dad paid him $10,000, cash, to declare you incompetent without ever examining you. He never even met you, Grandpa. $10,000. The price of my freedom and the notary, Jenkins. He was paid $5,000 to notarize the document without you being present," Emily said. "Mom admitted it all. We had the truth, the ugly, sordid truth. Now we needed to use it. We needed to turn the truth into a weapon. Emily used her college fund, money I had saved for her education, to hire a lawyer. Alex Martinez was young, aggressive, and he believed in justice. He met us in the visiting room at Willow Creek. He listened to my story. He looked at the evidence Emily had gathered, the forged signature, the timeline, the suspicious circumstances. Sarah's unofficial confession. Mr. Miller, Alex said, his voice filled with compassion and steel. This is one of the worst cases of elder abuse I've ever seen. Financial exploitation, fraud, illegal confinement. We are going to fight this, and we are going to win, but we need to move carefully, Alex warned. Your son still legally holds the power of attorney. The courts move slowly. We need to challenge that immediately. We need an independent medical evaluation to prove your competency. Today, how do we do that if I'm stuck in here? I asked. Mrs. Davis won't let me leave. We get you out, Alex said, his eyes shining with determination. Emily is going to try to sign you out for a day trip, a lunch outing. It's a risk. They might refuse. If they do, we file an emergency injunction. But that takes time we don't have. The plan was set. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and hope. This was our only shot. The next morning, Emily arrived early, dressed professionally, looking older than her 20 years, holding the necessary paperwork. Alex waited outside in the car, ready to intervene if necessary, ready to drive me straight to an independent psychiatrist. My heart hammered against my ribs as we walked to the admissions desk. This was it. Freedom or failure. I'm here to sign out my gangster George Miller for the day, Emily said confidently to Nurse Brenda. Brenda looked up from her computer, her expression suspicious. She knew something was wrong. A day trip? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Mr. Miller hasn't left the facility since he arrived. He's not authorized for outings. He's feeling much better, Emily said, smiling brightly. And I want to treat him to lunch. His favorite diner. Brenda hesitated. She tapped her pen on the desk. Okay, she said slowly. Let me just check with the director, Mrs. Davis. Policy for advanced care residents. We waited, every second, stretching into an eternity. I could taste the freedom. I could almost feel the sunlight on my face. The smell of fresh air. I prayed, harder than I had ever prayed before. But then the automatic doors slid open, and my blood ran cold. Michael walked in. He stopped dead when he saw me, and Emily standing together at the desk. His face turned pale, then flushed with a terrifying rage. He knew we were fighting back. What in the hell is going on here? He demanded, storming over to the desk, his voice echoing in the quiet lobby. I'm taking Grandpa out for lunch, Dad, Emily said, standing tall, placing herself between me and my son. My protector, my shield. Like hell you are, he shouted, pointing a finger at me. He's not stable. He's not well. I am his legal guardian. He goes nowhere without my permission. He turned to Brenda. Do not release him. I know what you did, Dad, Emily said, her voice shaking but clear, strong. I know about the forgery. I know about Dr. Evans. I know about Samuel Jenkins. It's over. Michael's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected this. He thought he was dealing with a senile old man and a naive young girl. He was wrong, dead wrong. He turned desperate, vicious. How dare you? He hissed, grabbing Emily's arm roughly. His fingers dug into her skin. You ungrateful little brat. After everything we've done for you, you don't know what you're talking about. Emily winced in pain. Dad, you're hurting me. He's sick, Michael screamed, turning to the gathering crowd. He's manipulated you. He's delusional. He's filling your head with lies. Let go of her, I shouted, stepping forward, fueled by adrenaline, the protective instinct kicking in. I grabbed his wrist. My grip was strong, the strength of a carpenter. The commotion drew a crowd. Staff, residents, visitors, all staring. The silence, broken by the ugly confrontation. Mrs. Davis came rushing out of her office. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, her face stern. Mr. Miller, step away from your son. This man, Michael pointed at me, his voice dripping with contempt. He pulled his wrist free from my grip. He is mentally incompetent. He is a danger to himself and my daughter is interfering with his care. I demand you call security. He was in full performance mode now. The concerned son protecting his sick father. It was a sickening display, a masterful manipulation. He is not incompetent, Emily cried, rubbing her arm, her face red with anger. You had him drugged and locked away so you could steal his life savings. You sold his house. You bribed a doctor and a notary. That is a lie, Michael roared. He turned to the crowd, spreading his arms wide, playing the victim. He's senile, he cried. He doesn't even know where he is half the time. Dad, tell them how confused you've been. Tell them this is all a mistake. He turned to me, expecting the drugged, compliant old man he had created, the broken man he thought I was. But that man was gone. I looked at Mrs. Davis. I looked at the faces in the crowd. And I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, the man I had loved, the traitor who had destroyed my life. My name is George Miller, I said, my voice strong and steady, ringing through the lobby, clear and loud. The silence was absolute. I am 72 years old. I am a retired carpenter. I built the house at 42 Oak Street with my own hands. I lived there with my wife, Martha, for 40 years. I pointed at Michael. My hand was steady. No tremor. This man, my son, tricked me into coming here, I continued, my voice rising with righteous anger. He forged my signature on a power of attorney document. He paid a doctor named Dr. Evans $10,000 to declare me incompetent, without ever examining me. I paused, letting the words sink in. He paid a notary named Samuel Jenkins $5,000 to legalize the forgery. Michael stared at me, his mouth open, his face ashen. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He couldn't believe I knew everything. He used that document to sell my house and steal over $200,000 of my savings. I accused, the truth finally spoken aloud. He instructed the staff here to drug me, to keep me compliant and confused, to keep me silent. He's lying, Michael stammered, looking desperately at Mrs. Davis. He's having a moment of clarity. It happens with dementia patients, but he's sick. You have his records. You know he's delusional. I am not sick, I said, my voice resonating with power. The power of the truth. I am a victim of fraud and abuse, and I want my life back. I turned to Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis, I demand an independent medical evaluation. And I demand you call the police. Just then, Alex Martinez walked through the front doors, his presence commanding the room, his timing perfect. I've already called the police, Mr. Miller, Alex said, his voice calm and authoritative. He held up his phone. They are on their way. Michael turned to run, but it was too late. 2 police officers walked into the lobby, their uniforms, a symbol of justice. A sight I thought I would never see. The aftermath was a whirlwind, a storm that washed away the lies and exposed the truth. The independent medical evaluation confirmed what I already knew. I was fully competent. No signs of dementia. No cognitive decline. The psychiatrist was horrified by my story, by the medication regimen I had been subjected to at Willow Creek. He called it chemical imprisonment. The power of a taint was immediately revoked. My freedom restored. The police investigation uncovered the depth of the conspiracy, the court, the greed, the money trail. Dr. Evans was arrested. He confessed to the bribery immediately, desperate to cut a deal. His medical license was revoked, his reputation destroyed. Samuel Jenkins, the notary, was also arrested. He flipped on Michael immediately, providing testimony about the forgery. Willow Creek faced a massive investigation by the state for their complicit, their negligence, their medication practices. Mrs. Davis was fired. Nurse Brenda was arrested for assault and negligence. The facility was eventually shut down. Michael and Sarah were arrested, charged with fraud, theft, elder abuse, false imprisonment. The charges piled up. The trial was painful, excruciating. I had to sit on the stand and testify against my own son. Seeing him in an orange jumpsuit, his face haggard, refusing to look at me, broke my heart in a way the betrayal hadn't. He was still my son, the boy I had loved. But the man he became was a stranger. They were found guilty, on all counts. Michael was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Sarah, who the investigation revealed was the driving force behind the greed, the mastermind of the conspiracy, received 10 years. I won the legal battle. But the victory felt hollow. I had lost my son. I had lost my family. We managed to recover some of the money through a civil suit, but most of it was gone. Spent on their extravagant lifestyle, their debts, their lawyers. The house on Oak Street was gone too, sold to an innocent family. I couldn't bear to go back there anyway. The memories were tainted, the foundation cracked, the sanctuary violated. I moved into a small apartment in the city, near Emily's college. She was my rock through it all, my savior in the wreckage of my family. I found a true connection with my granddaughter, a bond forged in fire. Stronger than steel. It's been a year. I still have nightmares about Willow Creek, about the fog, about the feeling of being trapped, the helplessness. The smell of disinfectant still makes me sick. But I am healing, slowly, one day at a time. One evening, I was sitting on the small balcony of my apartment. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I had set up a small woodworking bench. The smell of sawdust, comforting, familiar, the smell of home. I picked up a piece of basswood and a carving knife. My hands, though scarred and aged, were still steady, still strong. Emily came out and sat beside me, handing me a cup of coffee. She was graduating soon, top of her class. She was going to change the world. "What are you making, Grandpa?" she asked softly, watching me work. I looked at the wood taking shape in my hands. A small bird, its wings spread wide, ready for flight. "A new beginning," I said, smiling. I looked at Emily, her face bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. So much like Martha. Sometimes the people you expect to protect you are the ones who destroy you, and sometimes the people you overlook are the ones who come to save you. I lost everything I had built, my house, my savings, my son, but I regained my freedom, my dignity, and the love of my granddaughter. I was a carpenter, and I knew that even when the foundation is destroyed, you can always build again. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.